university system,
Mm.
where they do a lot of experiential learning in Second Life across a number of subject matters. So, um, and those are really deep, highly customized, interactive learning modules that really take advantage of the platform. It's one thing to just set up a room with a screen and a bunch of desks and have everybody sit down and you just do
Mm.
a class like you've always done it. I mean, that's not that hard to do in Second Life, although there's some things we can do to make that easier. In whether it's the onboarding process or how easy you can present information on slides. And we have a
Mm.
good upgrade coming on soon so that you can actually do live video through the media on a prim feature. And so there's stuff we can do to make those scenarios easier. But if you need deep integration with learning management systems and keep track of students, and uh, then you need to build additional functionality, and that's something CNDG has done as an example.
Mm.
So we have to figure out where does Linden Lab, what role do we want to have? Where platform role, and companies and partners like CNDG and others can build these solutions on top of our platform rather than us being sort of an education system directly from Linden Lab.
Mm.
Because there's so many verticals. I mean, education is just one of them. You have healthcare, you have entertainment, and how how many of these can we sort of provide sort of the complete solution
Mm.
versus creating the platform that enables third parties to create solutions on top of it. So I kind of think of us, at least at this point, more like Windows, and it's up to people to build applications on
Mm.
regions to target specific use cases. And
Mm.
so, what can the platform do to enable people to create those solutions on top is where we're kind of, I would say, we're spending more time thinking about and understand how can we unlock those verticals from being successful or to be successful, and rather than going all the way sort of really deep into each vertical ourselves. I mean, that would be a huge
Mm.
amount of work, and so we have to sort of pick our battles. And so far, we're sticking at the platform battle, and then to rely on third parties, of which I'm having many conversations with all the time to try and figure out what we can do to unlock
Mm.
them, and so they can go be successful.
I know that with CNDG, I've done things like exploring the inside of a giant cell and finding out how different molecules combine within the cell. And they ran a wonderful chemistry course, which was basically students got to be CSI and go and investigate a murder. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by experiential learning, and that's what what
Mm.
what they've done, and I've seen some others do, is to really take advantage of the platform and
Mm.
script interactive experiences where you learn through doing, as opposed to
Mm.
just sitting there and listening to yet another lecture, blah blah blah, or watching videos and stuff. Because you can kind of do those things on other platforms as well. Although
Yeah.
the sense of being together in a shared space is really powerful. I think from a learning perspective, I think it's even more interesting when you can create scenarios where students or it's not just students of all kinds have to interact with other people and the environment to do things, because that's how you absolutely learn the best, is to do as opposed to just watch or listen. And but that always take much more specialized implementation and scripting and all that
Mm.
to implement those. And then when it comes to education, you still then have to pay attention to sort of the educational guidelines, and you can't just go off and do what you want. It had to sort of
Mm.
be approved and all of that. So and that's where it gets really unique for every vertical, of sort of the unique things you have to deal with. And it would be a
Mm.
lot of work for us to do all of that. But yeah, as I've seen people through some of the CNGG learning modules, they go scuba diving and they go fly to the Antarctica and take ice samples, and
Mm,
all kinds of really fascinating ways to learn.
mm.
So that's where I think learning gets interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I also remember an Imperial College project where they had people with learning difficulties actually coming into a model of the clinic they would visit, um, and walking through it and finding it so that they would be less worried when they went to the real one.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's amazing and wonderful use, I think.
yeah. I just had a great. I spent like an hour and a half with Brian over at the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo
Mm,
Clinic has done some
yes.
amazing things in Second Life, and they
Mm,
they use it all the time. And the breadth of they do group sessions and helping people with dietary choices and exercise and you know talks, and so again there's the ability to sort of introduce experiential learning, and also the ability for people to sort of have safe social interaction without having to travel, and be able to meet people and
mm.
health professionals from around the world. So um, it's there's a lot you can do. It really just takes people's creativity to go do it, and so it's uh, it's amazing to see what people do.
I wanted to change the subject slightly because we've talked about COVID and what's been happening this year, but this year we've also seen the world start to pay greater interest to issues of diversity and equality. How would you say Linden Lab's rising to the challenge of diversity in its operations and also in the platform?
Yeah, well, as you see, I'm wearing diversity. It's very important to us. We have a very diverse staff, and but we can always do better, and we constantly think about how we can do better. I'm extremely proud of the team because of the how thoughtful the people, the Linden Lab employees are, and I've never heard a Linden Lab employee say something that I wouldn't be comfortable having shared in public when it
Mm,
comes to diversity. And and we so and I'm also very proud of what I mean. In some ways, the virtual world is a bit of an equalizer. Our physical presence, our geographic presence, our economic status, a lot of these things kind of become a lot less valuable
mm,
or important or in sort of a virtual world where we can sort of be whatever we want to be. And um, so uh, I'm also very pleased with that we have, I think, a very diverse user base. Um, I know the female male ratio is pretty darn good for being what people would perceive as a gaming platform. um,
mm,
so I'm I'm glad what we can do for diversity. I'm glad what the employees are doing for diversity. I am glad what we are doing to try and be as diverse of a workforce as possible, because the more diverse we are, the stronger we are. Um, but again, this is not something that you check off, tick a box and then, oh, look, I'm diverse.
yeah.
Like you have to constantly work on it. Um, Personally, trying to think of everything I say or do, or actions I take, or how I behave, or how I think in various situations, as to whether certain biases are getting in my way as a human being, and how can we, you know, what can we do to make sure that the people that work at Linden Lab are comfortable, uh, and what can we do to continue to hire diversity into the company,
Mm.
and what can we do to just set the tone, and what our expectations are for a healthy world like Second Life. And it's a
Mm.
challenge. I mean, it's not that easy because we're also very much believers in freedom of expression and freedom of what yeah, freedom of expression, and let people say and do whatever they want, but there are always limits. And so how do you identify those limits, and how do you handle situations where people sort of cross the lines of those limits?
Mm.
Because another thing is clear also, is that we do not all have the same um, interpretation of where those limits should be. And you can see
Mm.
this dialogue in public too, as to what should be allowed to be said or not said on something like
Mm.
Twitter or Facebook, or what should those companies do to stop the people that are saying bad things from saying those things, and where
Mm.
do you draw the line? What is acceptable speech, and what is not acceptable? And um, that it's always, it's going to be, again, it's not a box to check. It's a constant thing that you have to be on your mind, and you have to think about in almost every context to get to some future ideal state. And I just hope all the really ugly stuff that happens around the world will will stop, and that
Mm.
people can just treat each other as humans, and eliminate biases, discrimination. I mean, these things are just horrible. I mean,
Mm.
there's nothing else to say about it. Those things just bother me really, really
Mm.
deeply. So um, please, everybody, if you think you see, or you see something where we are not doing the best we can do to um, enabling, empowering, and supporting diversity, let us know, and we'll continue to try and do better.
Mm. I think it is. It's something you can never say job done
No,
to.
it and if even if you reach a job done level for something somewhere, then there's always tomorrow.
Mm.
Something comes up that challenges that status, or brings up a new situation, and it's every decision you make can have
Mm.
an impact, positive or negative, towards
Mm.
acceptance and diversity. So we all should pay attention to it.
Yeah. Yes. Changing the subject now, because I'm conscious that time is moving on. There's a lot to talk about. Can you tell us a little about the decision to sell Sansa? Was that a tough decision? Why did you decide it was time to let it go?
Yeah, it was a very tough decision. I mean, we spent a lot of time and quite a bit of money to develop a core technology that we're we're very proud of the work we achieved, but it's also the realization that building virtual worlds is not a simple thing.
Mm.
It takes a huge amount of resource to do it. Our realization along the path was that it'll take more than we thought, and it also will take more than we felt we had available to us, and we didn't want to hurt the Second Life business. So how do we uh, sort of ensure that we give the best path forward for both? And so we made a decision that it made more sense for them to part ways, and that I think that will increase the chance of success for both. And
Mm.
that was what I was hoping for. And so I'm very happy to see that the Sansar team found a home. They still have a lot of work to do. They still need to spend a lot of money to get to where they want to go, but Um, they the team that we let go there pretty much came back together again. So all these former Lindens working on Sansar over there, I'm rooting for them, and they're friends, they're partners. There's a customer of ours. They use Tilia just like Second Life, and so we're in close contact with them, and I hope they succeed. Uh,
Mm.
but my J job is simpler now because I'm focused entirely on the future success of Second Life and Tilia, and so it was a tough decision, but it was the right decision.
Mm.
And now I, I I feel now that it was in the best interest of for both products and both teams. And so far that's been true, and I just hope that remains true as we move forward.
Mm. Do you feel that the work that was done on Second Life, that was done on Sansar, has had a positive impact on Second Life? Do you feel that Second Life could continue to benefit from the Sansar legacy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the work we're doing now to go to AWS for Second Life, we learned a lot because Sansar was built on AWS from the beginning.
Mm.
So we have a bunch of staff here. When it's a matter of moving Second Life to AWS, it's not a a first time experience. It's sort of for some of us, it's sort of a little bit of been there, done that.
Mm.
So that was helpful, both from knowledge within on the team and experience, but also some of the technologies. Um, and I think we learned a lot about virtual reality, and I mean VR, the VR hardware and
Mm.
HMDs, and what it means to be using virtual reality hardware. We learned a lot about that, and we learned a lot about some areas around avatar customization, even though it doesn't yet have the, you know, some of the flexibilities that Second Life has. I think it really pushed some things in the right direction as far as ease of use to, quickly be able to come in and, customize your avatar and go shopping and have things just kind of work. Sansar still has a bunch of work to do in that area if that's what they choose to
Mm.
focus on. But I think we learned a lot of things from that experience. So yeah, I mean, certainly people that are here now working on Second Life that worked on Sansar, they've learned through experience of trying something new and different, um, and that includes me. So yeah, I think we learned some things we're that are benefiting us today, but also can benefit our thinking as we go forward. And you know, anytime you decide to design a new product or new feature, you always want to look at what's been done before and who's doing it well, and
Mm.
how can you learn from that, and not sort of reinvent bad wheels when you can do things that have already been solved in good way. So.
Mm.
Uh, uh, and we also got to learn how hard this is to do. Um, you know,
Yes.
it's a non-trivial thing to create a virtual world as
Mm.
complex and as diverse and as amazing as Second Life is. It's not a small undertaking. So
Mm.
anyone who wants to get involved in that game with less than a few $100 million maybe shouldn't even you know
Mm.
consider playing. So it's a significant undertaking. So maybe if anything, we came to appreciate Second Life even more because of just how
Mm.
how amazing it is.
Yes. So let's turn a bit to economics, because of something that the lab launched last year, the unveiling of Tilia. So can you clarify a bit about what Tilia actually is and why we as a community should care about it?
Yeah. So I mean, what happens in Second Life is that people are transacting. They're buying and selling stuff from each other. right?
Mm,
Not from Linden Lab, but from each other.
mm,
And uh, and you and people also then can cash out or redeem and get fiat money in their bank account so they can go buy themselves food and pay rent
mm,
in the real world and or in the physical world, I should say. And that then gets you into regulatory territory of how can people basically transact in a regulated way. If we didn't do Tilia, then we would have had to sort of change the functionality in Second Life as to what people can do as far as economic activity within Second Life. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted people to be able to have sort of the economic flexibility and freedom that Second Life enables. And so we went down a journey, started some, 6 years ago, to go get money transmitter licenses and basically make the economic activity that occurs in Second Life a regulated, to meet regulatory compliance.
mm,
And that takes a lot of time.
mm.
Getting money transmitter licenses, especially since our business model is a bit unique, shall we say, uh,
Yes.
take some time to explain to regulators and then all the work to make sure you have all the regulatory processes and tools in place to manage things like money laundering and
Mm,
KYC, or know your customer, of how you're tracking customers and who's doing what, because regulation sort of makes sure that you don't have money falling in the wrong hands, um,
mm,
or being moved from one place to another without sort of oversight. And so we had to build a bunch of tools. We had to do a lot of legal work to get these licenses, and uh, at some part in that process, it sort of was no longer this economic thing that happened just in Second Life, but we
mm,
created a separate entity to sort of ring fence all that regulatory stuff around it. Um, and we also thought that if we're going to go through all this work of doing this for ourselves, it makes a lot of sense to then offer that hard work we've done for third parties. So
mm,
today you have Second Life and Sansar using Tilia, and we announced recently a company called Upland that are going to use Tilia as well to allow for people to buy and sell virtual real estate within their game. And we have a number of other interested third parties as well that we're having active conversations with to take advantage of Tilia to enable them to basically insert an economy and a way for not just the company to make money, but also enable their customers to make money on their
mm,
platforms or games or products. And so we're super excited about the future business potential of Tilia because it's a unique solution that no one else has developed yet. So we're
mm,
kind of first in sort of being able to offer this. And so the Tilia team is hard at work to streamline some of the APIs or the interfaces that these third parties will, use to
mm,
interact with Tilia and enable economies to take place within their games and platforms. So we did it to protect the Second Life business. So it was kind of a defensive move in the beginning,
mm.
and now that we've sort of gotten this far, it's not just defense; it's also offense. And so that's it's been a fun trip. Um, so when you see Tilia, and you now have to sort of
Mm,
agree to Tilia's terms of service and all that, it's you can trust that this is made by the Linden Lab people, and that it's something that you've sort of been using all along. It's just that the shape of it has changed a little bit as we go along, uh, but it's still us. Yeah.
I And I guess that's been a huge help, actually, that you have a pretty good track record in managing the Linden economy, and handling the large sums of money, the equivalent of quite respectable countries' GDP.
Yeah, the Second Life GDP is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, USD dollars.
Mm,
And the fact that users, what I'm the most excited about is that users last year cashed out about $65 million, and it'll be more this year. And so knowing that we enable people to make either extra income or
mm,
entirely depend on Second Life as their source of income
mm,
uh, is really satisfying. And
mm,
I'm really happy that we are able to provide that. And as you all, probably most of you know, there's not a lot of games that there are really none that enable the sort of the economic freedom that we do in Second Life and the ability
mm,
to make real money like we do. And that's all the hard work the team has done, and what Tilia
mm.
is offering today.
Brilliant. Now, let's talk a little more about the economy and issues that really interest, I think, residents in Second Life. Things like the pricing strategy. Last year, there was some price changes in land and other fees. Are there any changes in pricing and the balance of pricing that we can expect in the coming year?
Well, coming year, I hope so. This year, I don't expect so. Like I said earlier, we're so slammed with just what we call project uplift to move to
Mm,
AWS, so that we don't have much resource beyond that to do uh, any major changes. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I've been saying for many years now. I think it is years now that I felt, and I still feel that land is too expensive. Um, And
mhm,
so the price of land, which basically is hosting fees, you can think of it as,
mm,
is a substantial source of income for us. Um, and so we basically made most, or still make most of our money on that side of the business. So
mhm,
as we reduce land cost, that means less revenue for us, and we have to make money as well. So well, then how do you make up for that? So two ways. You can find other ways of making money, and you can uh, make up for it in volume, right?
right.
So when I first came here, a full retail price of a full region was $295.
Mm,
Today it's $229. So what's that? Almost $70 that we've
mm,
taken off. And when you think about that as a percentage, and you think about that being the majority income for us, that adds up to a big number. And
mm,
so how we've made up for that is that we've increased fees elsewhere, right?
right.
The what I would you know monetization of the economy,
Mhm,
where people, buying and selling and redeeming Linden dollars, fees in those areas have been increased. Also,
mm,
a slight increase on the percentage we take on marketplace sales. Um, and some adjustment we also made to subscription pricing, because that hadn't changed in so long that we were certainly not keeping pace with inflation on that, because I think that hadn't changed in well over a decade or something. So so we've made adjustments in those other areas to sort of make up for the loss we make in the reduction in land pricing. To
mm,
continue to lower land prices, we again either have to make it up in volume or find ways to make money elsewhere to be able
mhm,
to still make a profit and pay our staff and all the
And
hosting
develop
fees and
Second Life.
technology fees and all that stuff, right? So, so we have some ideas, but I wouldn't expect anything to happen for a few quarters as we, plug ourselves through this whole major project we're working on right now. So, but in the future, yes, I would love for us to. Ideally, my ideal solution would be to be able to lower the prices quite a bit and make it up in volume. And then you either have to be absolutely certain that you will make it up in volume because you can't lower the prices and then you don't make it up in volume. And now what? Now it's a bad situation to be. You don't want to have to increase prices again. So you have to kind of do it carefully. And also, just like, the ugly word taxes, but fees or taxes of any economic system, when you change it, it impacts the economy within the system too, of who can be successful within the economic system. And there we have to be careful because we change pricing on things, and there are certain cohorts of our user base that could be positively and negatively impacted by that. And what are the chain reactions of those changes? And so we kind of try and do things in steps and sort of very carefully monitor, because making pricing changes can take many months for you to actually see how that changes behavior in the economy. And sometimes you see negative effects, and sometimes you see positive effects, and you sort of have to figure out. So you have to be careful. You can't just snap it overnight and hope that you don't destroy customers' businesses or what have you. So we have to be thoughtful as we do it. But yeah, my preference would be for land to get a lot cheaper over time. And it might not just be the core full region pricing that comes down a lot, although I hope so. But there could be other types of land products at different price points with different features and whatever we can consider. But again, we're not going to think about those things, in earnest until we're, get ourselves over to successfully to AWS and everything is working, and then we can sort of get back to thinking about those things.
I had a question from Brock Macmillan, which I think this would be a good point to introduce it, which is about one change you've been talking about, and I suppose already have elements of it, is things like Premium Plus and your intentions with how you're going to develop Premium Plus.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite a far along thinking through what a difference or additions or changes to our subscription plans would be. And we technically have actually also done a lot of the work, but just a little while ago, we said for a number of reasons that it would additionally be an additional sort of burden and distraction for the team that's already sort of super booked with the big uplift project.
Yes.
So we can relieve them by taking that sort of those changes off the plate for now. And two, also with COVID and all the stress that's going on around the world, we didn't think of sort of adding another higher cost plan with more stuff was kind of like, is that the right thing to do that? So we're like, no. So we put that project on pause, and we'll pick it back up again, towards the end of the year. And but I'm not sure if I would expect anything to happen until next year on that.
I'll ask you about it next year.
Yeah.
Okay. In the past, you've shared roadmaps for the future with residents here at the Second Life birthday celebrations. What do you feel are some of the key accomplishments in the last year? And I think probably your vision for Second Life is a smooth changer through uplift. I wondered if you had any other ideas in the roadmap for 2020, 2021.
Of course. Yeah. Well, we've managed to do a lot. it's when you look back over a period of time, you go, holy smokes! I mean, that's quite a bit. Um, we finally got, the EEP, or the Environment Enhancement Project, out the door, and we're starting to see people do some really clever things with that, and seen some really beautiful worlds thanks to that. Um, Bakes on mesh, we did that so that you can get more efficient objects with multiple layers of textures, combined.
I'm a complete bakes on mesh fan. I've
Uh,
just gone into the back of my inventory and dug out all these wonderful old outfits that I loved, and suddenly I can wear them again.
yeah, it's a big performance advantage to not have all these layers, but just bake it all on, and you have just this one texture. So that's a good piece of work there. We have made a lot of work already to migrate to the cloud. So they flip the switch, and we can say we're done and we're out of the old colo. That's still a lot of work to do this year, but we've accomplished a lot there, and a lot of it you don't see. You don't even know what parts of the infrastructure is already running in AWS and what isn't, but there's already a lot of it up there. And the fact that we can do those, and you don't notice, we take as a win, because that means we didn't break anything. So a lot of good work has happened there. You've all seen the great work that Patch and his team has done on the Linden homes. That's been a huge success, and we just can't make them fast enough. Even though the Patch and team has figured out how to be pretty darn clever in how they can roll these out at scale. But as soon as we do, they just get gobbled, and they're all gobbled up in short period of time. So finally got the last name changes out there, so that you can change those. That took longer than we had hoped, because when you have this legacy code base that just assume that will never change, there's like tons of places that have hard-coded assumptions about those things not changing, and so going back and changing all that so that you can dynamically just change names and everything still works took quite a bit of time, but we got that out. I think marketing has done a tremendous amount of good work to be much more data driven and intelligent about how we do user acquisition, so we can be more precise in how we target user acquisition, and get more money for our dollars in how we do that. And so it's not just technical advancements in how we do customer acquisition, but also I think we've done a lot of good job of just creating cool content, from lab gabs to book clubs, and also a lot of interesting partnerships with partners like Hello Kitty and the NFL, and the Alumni Association, and Adult Swim for that live sort of video preview. The Blogger Network, with now over 400 participants. That's amazing. Go Strawberry. And we're also done a lot of things to better understand and be able to deliver things better for sort of business, what I call the B2B use cases, companies and educators. Some turnkey templates for them to quickly get, meeting places and conference centers up and running, and also being just how we think about it. So I wouldn't say we have a lot of work to do still to figure out how to be the right B2B partner, but I think we've learned a lot, have a lot of intelligent conversation about it, and are talking to a lot of interesting third parties to use our platform in an interesting way. So I'm excited about the sort of the progress there.
I'm excited about the designing world shows we'll be able to make about them.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that we have, I mean, the events calendar is chock full of events. I mean, I can't keep up with all the events, and the fact that residents can pull these events off by themselves But we still have a lot of work for a brand new company that's never done it in a virtual world, that just want to get in and get their company up and running, or their presentation or conference um, or show or whatever it is, to just, how do I just use the platform and do it? There's a lot of work we can do to just streamline that whole process so that we can get companies to come in and just sort of be up and running successfully within, hours, not weeks. And so, but we're learning a lot in that area. For the future, so great work that the team has been working on so hard to get all these things done in addition to this massive project, Uplift project. So what about the future? Well, we're working on mobile. We're working on what we call the companion app. It's definitely, if you will, not the full browser, but the engine behind it that we basically have inside of Second Life. And by upgrading that, we'll do a better job of rendering web pages on Media on a Prim, and also then finally support live streaming video, which enables lots of interesting use cases. Obviously, the move to the cloud, that's planned to be completed this year. And so that is kind of the number one, number two, and number three priority. Everything else is sort of what we can do is behind that one. I mentioned how we continue to sort of think about and how we can continue to move forward on these business to business initiatives, whether it's enterprise or education, and what can we learn. So I think right now we're in a lot of a learning mode and trying to figure out what are the right ways to solve for those use cases. And it's not just features, it's also business models and what kind of resources do you have and to succeed at that. So it's quite a bit of thinking and noodling on, but I think we could do so much to have groups interact in more successful ways in virtual worlds than you can with other technologies available today. So I'd love for us to give that a shot in the arm and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if you could apply the business to business model to education too.
Oh, a lot of things are common between those two. So the Venn diagram of sort of business use and educational use overlap a lot, although they each have some unique elements that we have to think through. But I think if we can make things better for one, we'll make it better for the other at the same time. So just focusing in that area, I don't think you can fully kill two birds with one stone, but you can. That's a horrible. Who came up with that? Who wants to kill birds? It's horrible. The Tilia will continue to improve as well. I mean, it's already, we're very proud of how secure and compliant and safe it is, but there are still things we can do to make it more convenient around the world for how money can come in and go out. Premium Plus, which we discussed earlier, that's something we want to get back to. It's put the pause button, push the pause button on that. So we'll get back to that. And I think a project that we just need to come to grips with someday is to just simplify the whole avatar customization process. Like, how can you get a novice noob come in and sort of understand how to sort of make themselves look the way they want to look, and whether it's customizing the body or make the whole fashion industry around your avatars make sense. There's a lot of things we can do to simplify that process, and it's something that's important to everybody. You always want to sort of get sort of your identity kind of just so, and so that's kind of a feature that you can't have people avoid it. You kind of need to go through that process, and so making that a better, simpler more enjoyable process. I think we should focus on as well. So
Oh,
those
I
are
think
some
a
of
lot of people enjoy that process, you know. There are people who
yeah, and
dedicate their whole second
I mean
life to that.
I mean we have what I would call sort of we have hardcore residents that fully appreciate and take advantage of the incredible capabilities we have today.
Mm,
But that's not something that your average noob could ever comprehend.
mm,
And so, how do you create simplification, but then also allow for these power use cases we have today? And
yeah.
does that mean you have multiple avatar system? How do So today is just really hard. I mean, watching new users come in, try and customize the avatar. They go shopping. They
Mm,
try and get their avatar to use the stuff they shop for. Is a painful experience. It's painful, and
mm,
so getting that sorted, I think, is going to be really really important. And then we have a lot of other work underneath as well. Graphics, performance. Um, uh, these are, I think, areas that are going to be constant areas
mm.
where we have to continue to innovate and improve.
Yeah, yeah. I have a question that came in from Pew Pew Zero, which I thought was rather interesting. He says combat in Second Life can be difficult for role players, as many of us continue to experience lag in multiplayer combat situations. Will we see improvements in the high latency and lag spikes after transferring all the data to the cloud? And could we finally consider Second Life to be part of the esports community with this move? And then following on from this, are there any future plans to promote gaming and target the young gamer audience?
Wow, there's quite a lot there.
Yeah.
But at the core of this is performance.
Mm,
And here is where we took a very different approach when we built Sansar than the way Second Life is built. Um, and there are pros and cons. And as usual, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? So
mm,
you have to figure out where to put your emphasis. A game that you see today that you play with other gamers, these are highly tailored experiences. Most of them
mm,
run on top of commercial engines like Unity or Unreal that have ginormous resources working to enhance those engines and to make them more performant and visual fidelity improvements and all that,
mm,
and cross-platform support. Um, because of what Second Life is today, I couldn't rely on one of those engines. It just is not feasible for us to transition to one of those engines. And even starting a new virtual world from scratch, I'm not sure if I would be comfortable to bet on using one of those engines. There's certain problems you have to solve for when you have user-created content of the magnitude we do.
mhm,
Um, that you just open a whole can of new problems that those engines don't really try and deal with and solve for.
mm,
And so being in control of our own engine has certain advantages, but the disadvantage is that you have to do all the work of supporting your own engine. Um, so I hope that we will see some improvements in performance by going to the cloud. Directly, right off the bat, we will be running on region servers that are several generations newer in CPU and GPU
mm,
functionality. So we don't yet have data on what if that could mean exactly, but I'm hopeful that that will just be sort of a benefit we'll get right away. It makes sense, but until you see it, you don't want to expect too much. But let's hope we get something from that. Um, then there's just continue to focus on performance. I mean, Second Life today is of better quality and better performance than it's ever been.
right.
Our crash rate is lower than it's ever been. And this is because a lot of bug fixing and tweaking that we've been doing for years now.
Mm.
So we continue to ship these viewers, and we continue to look at these crash numbers closely all the time to see. And we've never seen a crash rate as low as we see right now. So I mean,
Mm.
that's really good progress. Um, Another thing that's challenging is that we have a lot of users, a lot of creators that create content that have, you know, very little understanding of how to create performant content.
Yes.
And when you look at, take any sort of MMO or any sort of game that is very popular, Halo, you pick it. The
Mm.
collaboration between the engineering team and the art team to produce that game is incredibly tight, where they polish every vertice, every texture reuse to the max, polygon destruction to the max. And the engine and the art team sort of work hand in hand to understand each other to get the absolute best performance possible. They also
Mm.
make sure that the game logic sort of takes you only to places where you will see stuff you should see, and you can't go behind the scenes and see the stuff you shouldn't see, so they can again further optimize the content. And then obviously a lot of effort on content optimization, texture formats, and all kinds of technologies to get more performance in the
Mm.
engine. But we just don't have that luxury of our content creators working like professional content creators at gaming studios.
Mm.
And so we have to deal with some really strange content and some very inefficient content. Um,
Mm.
and so when you go and buy, 500 things from the marketplace and you throw them all in one region, like your texture reuse and the number of polygons you have in that world is just beyond something any gaming studio would ever tolerate or allow.
Mm.
But it's not up to us to say we're not going to allow it,
Mm.
right? So areas where I think we can improve over time is how can we provide more data and information to the creators so that they better understand how they can optimize their content on our platform to be better. Um, and we've done some work in the past with jelly dolls and jelly babies, whatever, so that you being not a non-performant avatars, has a price because now people won't see your beautiful dress because you're just too heavy.
Mm.
And that puts some sort of pressure on content creators to try and stay under certain limits and what have you. And so what more can we do to create pressure to give and a lot of that has to do with just showing people data, like, okay, this is your region, by the way, the average frame rate on your region is in the bottom, you know
Mm.
1/4 of all regions. Maybe you
Yes.
should take a look at what it is you're doing, and here's some tips and tricks for what you can do to make it more performant. So there are those kinds of things I think we can do to just and help to collaborate with the creators in Second Life to produce better content. Um,
Mm.
and then there's stuff we can continue to do, and we continue to see things we can do with better texture compression or better, uh, what do we render, what do we not render, LOD systems,
Mm.
caching systems. I mean, there are all kinds of technologies we obviously can continue to work on, but it's not like we can suddenly just ship a new viewer and magically, you never have lag
Yeah.
again because you're still at the mercy of the quality of the content. So, and there's not that many games either where you try to have 70 people or whatever all run around and do things at the same time.
Mm.
So having non-performant content with non-performant avatars with a high concurrency number is just kind of a uh, a recipe for lag, right? And so
Yes.
and so we're just going to have to continue to innovate and work with creators to um,
Mm.
collaborate, with both
Mm.
information and technology to get ourselves all to a better place where lag is not as much of a problem.
Mm.
Um, And then
Choice of
also, what are the ideal settings we should have for you given your machine, as
mm,
far as you know, how much you should render, and uh,
mm,
so yeah, there lots of things still to work on. And but in general, I would say performance. And then you have people that would they prefer to the world and everything to be beautiful, rather beautiful at a lower frame rate, and then other people would rather have it look less beautiful but be much more performant. So you know,
yeah, yeah,
and today we kind of support both of these, where users have to go in and customize all kinds of settings to kind of get the ideal for them. Well, that's another thing that a noob would never sort of spend the time and energy to get into that stuff unless you really become a
mm,
dedicated resident. So how can we make sure that by default things are set up right for you to get what you want there? So uh, just at the end of the day, there's no magic bullets here. It's just a lot of hard work.
a couple of suggestions have come through from Toy Soldier Thor, who suggested that you could have like a content efficiency marker on the marketplace. And someone else has said, Nick Eldritch said, you need to make content carry appropriate LI so people have a better idea of how resource heavy content truly is.
Yeah, and LI, which is a measurement
Yeah.
that's and a new user would never comprehend what that means.
Mm,
um, is not easy to compute, right?
mm,
And what is a good and what is
yeah.
bad? Well, that depends on context. What are you trying to do? I mean, if you're trying to set up in your world where it's just you and your buddy doing photo shoots, then maybe it doesn't matter. Whereas,
Mm,
so what is good, what is bad, what is light, what is heavy. I mean, it's
mm,
technically difficult, and also could be difficult to even market correctly in the marketplace, to help people understand what that really means.
yes.
Um, because sometimes it's not really just about that one object, but it's the collection of objects.
Mm,
If you have 50 things, um, using reusing textures is something you should really start thinking about, right? But you didn't even
mm,
create these objects, so how do I do that, right? So
mm,
yeah, there's again no no simple solutions, just a lot of hard work.
mm. Can I just run through a couple more questions? We're coming to the end. We've got 5 minutes left, and I have had a pile of questions, some of which I've incorporated.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, good. We've gone long here. Yeah, I can stick around a little bit longer too if other people can. So it's all up to you guys and the rest of the team here that's managing this whole affair. So it's not just up to me, but just me personally. If it, if we
okay,
could go a little further, I can
right.
stick around a little bit longer.
That would be brilliant. I think people would love that. Yes? Audience, would you like this to run a little longer?
I think everybody said no. So okay, we're
Yeah,
done there.
everyone said
Yeah.
no.
No.
Okay, let's whiz through a couple of things quickly. Someone said, Rogue Braveheart has said, um, as an ex-Microsoft veteran heavily involved with Office now, Microsoft 365, what is Linden Labs' plan to integrate these types of real life tools to facilitate the type of business use cases that COVID has shown are so vital?
Yeah, and that kind of got into sort of the a little bit of the B2B conversation from earlier. Well, I think we have a lot of work to do to make it more turnkey. Uh,
Mm-hmm,
how do you say, I'm a team of 30 people and we want to do this, right? A
okay.
conference, a concert, a classroom. Like, okay, how do you make it so that you can just provision yourself this region, world experience, whatever you want to call it? Let's call it an experience. And then how do you easily then get all the people into that experience, where you now have to onboard students or coworkers or customers or whatever you want into that experience? How did they flow into the experience without getting stuck, shopping for shoes that don't fit? Or and so it's sort of provisioning, onboarding, cannot be sort of people getting stuck on basics of avatar customization and stuff like that, because then the meeting's already over. And so and how do you what is the business model for some of those use cases as well? Because it's not maybe that they want to rent a region for a month. They just want to have a meeting for 2 hours, or for the weekend, or a concert over the weekend, or whatever it might be. So it kind of, and that's what I've said, when we think about these B2B use cases where you're not really necessarily targeting someone who is sort of have made up their mind, or discovers along the way that they want to become a sort of a resident and
Yes.
live here and be here. No, this is now just a utility and a tool. Then you have to lower the bar way down in complexity, ease of use, and how quickly people can get in and have a successful session of some kind. And so just us starting to have more and more of these conversations, just thinking about the unique use cases and how did this happen. I think we still have to have a lot more conversations. The positives is that we see when people do dedicate themselves and their audience to have these experiences, it works really well. It works a lot better than what is out there, but it still takes too much work to get to that point. And so it's all about ease of use, and to flip from kind of something that you have to really invest your time into understanding, to it to just become just a utility that just kind of seamlessly just works. And that is, again, not just a simple thing. It's a lot of different things, and a lot of work. But I think that's something that we should constantly strive for, and we will continually, as we improve the product quality, performance, and ease of use, we continue to improve those areas, and then sort of enable some of these turnkey, which is kind of ease of use, really, if you think about it. Then it'll become much more appealing to sort of the casual utility user, as opposed to the dedicated resident sort of type of product. And but solving for that, I think we're also going to solve a lot of things for people to just, for the residents as well. So, but we've got a lot of work in front of us to get there. And so meanwhile, we try and focus more on people that are willing to invest time and energy in making the platform work for them, rather than just coming in. And so we try to set expectations with customers. And so we have these conversations with customer. What are you trying to do? What's your audience? What's the use case? What would success look like for you? Okay. And then how much, support do they need for us to succeed at that? If they need too much support from us, then that doesn't scale well. I mean, Patch can only do so many things at once, right? And so we have to sort of pick the customers right now. We can't just say, hey, you there, come on in, you're going to be successful, I guarantee you. That would be a bit much to ask right now. So just more work to get there, but I think it's a good thing to strive for.
I'm going to say briefly that I've had some questions that I think would be more appropriate for Oz and the marketing team as well. Silas, I think Oz would be able to.
Yeah, you're gonna throughout this week, you're gonna be able to talk to much more knowledgeable people than me about a lot of things. So save the good stuff for them. Yeah.
Female, again, I think your questions, because we're running out of time. I was going to go quickly. A question from Tansy. Would there be a possibility of renegotiating the return of an updated version of the Linden endowment for the art?
Well, I think that'd be a great conversation to have with the marketing team,
Okay.
Brett and those guys. I don't know. I, I I I want to support the arts.
Mm,
Being an art major myself, it's near and dear, and I think a lot of the amazing and unique sides of Second Life is due to art
mhm,
of all shapes and forms. Music to visual arts to all kinds in between. So
mhm,
if we can support it, I'd love to do that. It's always been more of a question of how do you do it in the right way.
mm,
And sometimes it's less about us and it's more about sort of sometimes they get politics and you have different people that can't agree amongst each other and who's driving the bus and
mm,
and we get tossed around a little bit but you know making sure that there is a way for expression that otherwise could not be expressed due to cost to sort of
mm,
find a way for that to happen is absolutely something that I'd like to see us support. So, but how? It's more the question of how. It's not if we
mm,
want to. It's just what's the right way to do it to
mm,
um, at a meaningful scale. Although we couldn't suddenly support anyone who says I'm a poor artist with 3 regions. That wouldn't fly. So we have to figure out what is the right execution on something like that. But yeah, bring that up with Brett and the marketing gang. Yeah.
okay. Um, I've got there's one quick question. Yes, Lynn Darkwatch wanted to ask about how problems with copybotters are going. How are things going in the fight against copybotters?
Um, ooh, well, there's the fact that technically there is no known solution to stop copying,
Mm,
right? It's just
mm,
it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter what medium you're talking about. Video, music. Um, have you seen a successful solution that just prevents it and be a successful business model at the same time? Nope. So it's not about eliminating it because there's no known solution to that really. That still creates a reasonable creative environment and a reasonable business model. So how do you then deal with the fact that it happens? We do have the tools and processes in place. And here again are things that people trying to build virtual worlds so have probably not even come to think of these types of issues just yet. How do so we do have ways for you guys to report basically infringement
mm,
and theft, and we take action when that is a clear-cut case that we can take action on.
mm,
Um, we can only really take action if you're reporting this against something that you own. It's not really for any one of us to say what people can and cannot do with other people's content. It's up to the owner of the content to decide what can or cannot be done with their content. Um, so if you feel that anyone is infringing on your content or has stolen your content, then report it. And we have people working on it. We have the tools, we have the processes to take action when it's there to be had. So report it. That's all I can
mm,
say. I don't know that there's anything. I don't know of anything magical we can do to just have this problem just
mm.
somehow just go away.
It's been true for years that whatever you see on your computer screen, you can copy.
Yeah. Um, I see a question here. Well, we kind of went over this. Will
Uh,
will the migration to the cloud be implemented before the end of the year so that more regions can be offered again? That's absolutely our goal.
mm,
Our goal is to be completely done before the end of the year. And as far as making more regions available in the cloud, before the end of the year, obviously as soon as possible. Again, I can't pick a date between now and the end of the year when I can sort of be comfortable that that will happen, but it's a conversation Oz and I have every week. Every one-on-one we have, this conversation comes up. So the team knows, and everybody's doing everything we can to get there as fast as possible. But hopefully, just a couple of more months for us to get there.
So I've got two quick questions. One is from Frau Jo Yardley, who says, can we have endowment of the stems, she says, not regions. Regions, Joe, regions that have managed to survive for longer than 10 years.
Well, some sort of grandfathered state if you've been around for 10 years, it's just free now. We would have to do the math and see what that means if every region that's been around for 10 years or longer, or whatever the date is, suddenly would go to a different tier or something like that. It's an interesting thought that is there a discount that applies based on some sort of duration or longevity or something. It's an interesting idea to incorporate that. Hey, but it's hard to sort of apply a business model that's going to hit your accountant 10 years from now. So we would have to we have to see if that could be folded into the mix of ideas for how to get
I think it would
Sims, as Joe wants to say, cheaper. Yeah.
It also seems to me that there has to be a kind of public interest in keeping them. I mean, if they were just really dull.
Yeah, no, it's extremely sad to see beautiful regions, and it obviously affects regions that don't have a business model in of themselves more than those that do. And therefore, arts gets affected again more because it doesn't necessarily try to be commercial. So how do you keep something like that up? And we see sometimes Patch will try and do a sort of a job to try and save it, whether to find another person to sort of shepherd it forward who wants to take on the cost, or sometimes Patch, but we can't do too many of these sort of takes it on themselves because they do tend to have to be managed over time. You can't just assume that you can just park it and not touch it. That would be so now it's more people having to manage more regions, all with custom stuff and that we didn't necessarily do in the first place. So for us to take them over, that doesn't come for free. So don't know. I mean, ultimately,
you kind of need something like the National Trust for Second Life, a non-profit that's devoted to preserving old buildings.
Yeah, but then they have to raise enough money to keep them going. And could there, is there a different sort of pricing for that? Well, okay, who's going to suddenly take advantage of that and say, oh, just put in the trust and then I don't have to pay for it anymore? It's not an easy problem. I think that the thing that we can continue to focus on is to create a better platform that's easier to use so that we get better scale, and then we can lower prices because we can make it up in volume. I mean, as long as we're a niche product like this, offering as complex of a product as we are, people are going to have to pay more because it's just not enough volume to have it be something we could just give away at much lower cost than we are already. So
I'm going to ask Patch about slurps tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, well, EBBE, I think we've come, sadly, to the end of your allotted time. And I can sort of see figures in the background jumping up and down and waving a little. I'm sorry we haven't had time for all the questions we received. I hope that we've answered enough to give you a good idea of what's going on in Second Life. EBBE, thank you so much. for doing that.
Absolutely. My absolute pleasure. Love everything you all do. Thank you all for coming and listening and provide us feedback and ideas. Continue to do so. Continue to enjoy the celebration we have. 17 years is an amazing achievement, and
Mm.
we should all be proud. And we have a lot of interesting stuff going on, and we plan to be around for a long, long, long time into the future. And we're investing heavily for that future. And so, yeah, stick with us. Things are going to continue to get better, and look forward to chat with you all again soon.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to say, um, I will be doing these talks all week. Tomorrow is Patch Linden. Wednesday is Oz Linden. Thursday is the marketing team. And Friday is the moles, which will be an enormous tangle of bodies on stage, I think. And so thank you, EBBE, for opening this season. And I think it is today. So can I say happy birthday, Second Life?
Yes, thank you. Happy birthday, Second Life. Let's all celebrate.